Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Americas. Here to look at what's coming up in today's show. A historic peace deal is signed in Colombia, putting an end to one of the longest-running conflicts in the world. The government and FARC rebels finally stop 52 years of war. Then Brazil is gearing up for local elections Sunday. We'll take a look at what kind of effect a year of top-level political scandals is having on the vote. And one down, two to go. Coming up, the very best zingers from the U.S. presidential debate. I'm Jeannie Godula. Well, we'll start first in Venezuela, where the opposition is calling for a new massive protest next month. That's in hopes of holding the referendum against President Nicolas Maduro before the end of the year, the one way to guarantee a new election to replace him. Venezuela has been hit by crippling poverty everywhere, including in nurseries where baby beds have been replaced with cardboard boxes. Well, that's pushing more and more citizens to take matters into their own hands.
It's now a question of survival for many inhabitants in Venezuela's capital. Oil prices have surged, the economy has crashed, and the rule of law has collapsed, leaving them hopeless and without protection. In this video, regular citizens are looting a supermarket. Food riots that have become a common sight in Caracas. Many Venezuelans are now eating fewer than 3 meals per day. People just can't afford to buy groceries anymore. The population is furious. They say the state can no longer protect them, so some have decided to take the law into their own hands.
It's another guy they caught trying to steal.
This amateur footage shows a crowd standing over an alleged robber. He's lying on the ground, bleeding from his head. Dozens of people are surrounding him idle, watching him in agony without lifting a finger. In the end, this man was burnt alive and eventually died from his injuries. His name was Roberto Fuentes Bernal, a 42-year-old cook. His aunt is still in shock. She says it's a public execution and that those responsible are still on the run.
They're murderers. I saw the video. You can't tell me that they can't identify the men who poured the gas and lit him on fire. They're still running free. I just don't get it.
The number of murderous lynchings in broad daylight in the capital has increased dramatically in the last year, even in calm neighborhoods. Los Ruices used to be a safe middle-class shopping district, but that was before the economic crisis. The district of Los Ruices now has its own militia. Its members say they don't lynch people, but admit using force to arrest robbers.
I'm going to tell you the truth. If someone steals, doesn't harm anyone, then we stop him. He gives the phone back and we call the police and everything goes smoothly. But if he steals and warns someone, we know what's going to happen. The police are going to arrest him, give him a little tap on the back and let him go. So that guy, yes, he deserves it. We'll beat him.
Many citizens say robbers and lynch mobs alike act with impunity in Venezuela. The police chief of the district, however, blames it on redundancies.
I think that in general our legal system is overwhelmed and that it has collapsed and there are less and less police officers. In 2011 there were 1,250 police for 600,000 inhabitants and today there are only 750 left.
Lynchings have become taboo in Venezuela, especially after the country's Supreme Court banned media from publishing videos of these acts, saying they create too much anxiety and uncertainty.
This week in Colombia, the government finally signed its peace accord with FARC rebels. That historic deal now paves the way for the end of a 50-year war that left 250,000 dead and millions more displaced. Phoebe Lanzer-Wood has more now from some of the war's victims.
A promise of peace that's finally becoming a reality. The victims of the longest-running war in the Americas are at the center of Colombia's accord between the government and FARC rebels.
My daughter will grow up in a different country. It is possible to build a different future, and it is something I never imagined for her or for me.
Romelia is one of 17,000 displaced Colombians who sought refuge in the small town of Soacha after fleeing violence during the nation's 52-year conflict.
I think it's a very hard process, but I truly believe it will happen. It would be wonderful if we had peace.
Signed after 4 years of tough negotiations in Cuba, the peace deal will now be put to a popular vote on the 2nd of October. A yes would mean an official end to a war that's left 220,000 people dead, 45,000 missing, and more than 6 million displaced. A no could plunge Colombia back into violence. For that reason, many of the war's victims say they'll be voting yes.
I'm all for peace, so I say people should vote yes. Because it would be good for us to be able to move about without worrying, knowing that we're no longer in danger. We would love to be able to walk around town and see our families without running the risk of having people point at us and know what happened to us.
But it will take a long time for Colombian society to recover from more than 5 decades of conflict. A survivor himself, Alan knows how hard it is to reconcile with the past. He was kidnapped and held for more than 7 years in a camp controlled by the FARC, but decided to forgive his captors upon his release. Alan now heads the government body tasked with giving reparations to nearly 8 million victims of a war as notorious for disappearances, abductions and sexual violence as killings.
My life is not going to be fixed by the person who kidnapped me rotting in prison. What would really make a difference is if there were no more kidnappings, no more victims and no more conflict.
Decades of war amount to decades of mistrust. Many doubt the FARC will give up all its criminal activities, while others say the peace deal does not necessarily mean an end to violence in Colombia. There might be mixed expectations, but for the countless victims, it could be the beginning of a brighter future.
People in Brazil are heading to the polls this weekend to vote in local elections there. Those are being seen as an all-important test of the nation's political temperature after a year that's been hit with growing scandals, including the impeachment of President Dilma Rousseff and the indictment of her predecessor Lula on corruption charges. His once dominant Workers' Party is expected to be crushed at the ballot box, leaving Brazilian politics even more fragmented ahead of the presidential vote in 2018. Nicholas Ransom has more now from the mayoral campaign in Rio de Janeiro.
It's one of his first appearances since he was charged with leading the huge corruption scandal at Petrobras. Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has come to support Yandira Figali, the Communist Party candidate to be the mayor of Rio de Janeiro.
I'll continue to fight for this country. They can keep investigating. They'll come to the conclusion the only crime I committed here in the west of Rio is to tell its residents, for the love of God, we can't keep making mistakes. We're going to vote for our comrade, Yandira Figali, to be mayor of Rio de Janeiro.
A month after the impeachment of Dilma Rousseff and with a trial on the horizon for Lula, the Workers' Party is trying to focus on rebuilding its shattered power base. The former president may be in the crosshairs of the Brazilian judiciary, but polls show he could win the first round of a presidential election in 2018.
They're going to go after us, after the party, to prevent me from being a candidate in 2018. All that when I wasn't even a candidate. Now, you are my main supporters in this country.
For working-class Brazilians, ties to the party remain strong. But on the eve of municipal elections, it's having to adjust its expectations. After 15 years as one of the big players in national and local politics, the Workers' Party is braced for disappointment at the ballot box. The number of party candidates is down 35% on 2012, its lowest level for 20 years.
E a perspectiva do partido aposta em menos prefeituras.
It's clear that the Workers' Party isn't so focused on local government. That's because of the damage caused by the impeachment of Dilma Rousseff, who's one of the main figures of the party. while one of its main draw cards, former President da Silva, is facing trial.
De votos para o PT, que sempre foi o ex-presidente Lula, também respondendo a processo judicial, ou a mais de processo.
While some candidates have distanced themselves from Lula and his successor, that hasn't been the strategy for Jandira Fegali, who's long supported the former president.
It's a conspiracy. Nobody believes the charges against Lula. The public prosecutor's office said as much. I don't have proof, but I know what I believe. It's ridiculous. We'll confront it along with Lula.
After 13 years in power, these local elections will serve as a litmus test for the Workers' Party and for its leader, whose political future is now in the balance.
All right, we'll wrap up now with a look at the most watched presidential debate in history. This week, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump faced off for the first of 3 fiery matches. And if you were one of the few people out there who did not see the debate, or you just want to remind yourself how strange it got at times, here's our Inside the Americas wrap of the best zingers.
I will release my tax returns against my lawyer's wishes when she releases her 33,000 emails that have been deleted.
Why won't he release his tax return? I have no reason to believe that he's ever going to release his tax returns because there's something he's hiding.
I was the one that got him to produce the birth certificate, and I think I did a good job.
He has really started his political activity based on this racist lie that our first black president was not an American citizen.
I think my strongest asset, maybe by far, is my temperament. I have a winning temperament. I know how to win. She does not know how to win.
Clinton.
Wait, I don't believe she does have the stamina to be president of this country.
Well, as soon as he travels to 112 countries and negotiates a peace deal, a ceasefire, he can talk to me about stamina.
The first U.S. presidential debate. All right, that's all the time we have for this Inside the Americas. We'll see you again next week for all the news from north to south.